Good afternoon, everyone. We'll declare our meeting open at 2:04 p.m. I would first like to acknowledge the continuing connection of Aboriginal people to country, culture and community, including traditional custodians of this land, the Wadandi people of the Noongar Nation, and paying respects to elders past and present. We have in this item announcement of visitors, and while not technically a visitor, I'd like to welcome Gary Hunt, our new interim Chief Executive Officer who joined us on Monday. Gary will lead the executive team and support councillors as we settle into our roles and go through the process of recruiting our new Chief Executive Officer. During this time, our Shire will have the benefit of Gary's experience and knowledge from a long career in local government, including his time as CEO for the City of Joondalup up until December last year, I think, and then prior to that, among others, the CEO for the City of Perth. On behalf of the Donnybrook Balingup community and all of us here, welcome, Gary.
Thank you very much.
A reminder to everyone here in Chambers that we are live streaming and digitally recording the agenda briefing. Councillors, please remember to switch on your microphone when we speak, and could we all remain aware that loud noises or background conversation is picked up in the live stream. A reminder also that no other visual or audio recording of the agenda of briefing is allowed without my permission. This is the first agenda briefing since November 2022, so it's prudent to recap on our roles. The job of the executive team today is to provide context and facts so that we have the knowledge we need to make informed decisions. Councillors, our job today is to ask questions and to feel confident that we have the knowledge we need to make those decisions. We will not be debating or expressing our opinions until next week. And members of the public, those in the gallery here and those watching live stream, your job today is to observe and gain insights into each agenda item, and we welcome your questions, deputations and petitions to be presented at the ordinary council meeting next week. And I encourage you to submit your questions prior to the meeting so that we can prepare an accurate and complete response. Item 2, our members present. As this is our first meeting, I'll take the opportunity to mention each councillor. And if you do have your back to the gallery, you can turn around and have a little hello if you like, as I mention you. So we have to my right, Vice President Lisa Glover. And in alphabetical order, starting over here on my left, is Councillor John Bailey. And then we have Councillor Alexis Davey, Councillor Peter Gribler, Councillor Anita Lindeman, and Councillor Anne Mitchell, Councillor Grant Patrick. We're waiting on Councillor Diana Shand. And so thank you all for your time tonight. To my left here we have Gary Hunt, as we mentioned, our Chief Executive Officer. To my right, Kim Dolzadelli, Director of Finance and Corporate. Ross Marshall, over on the right there, Director of Operations. Lauren Clifford, Manager of Corporate Services. And right over there to the left is Samantha Farquhar, Administration Officer for Corporate Services. I extend a warm welcome to everyone attending in the public gallery and to those who are watching live stream. Item 2.1, apologies, and we have none. Item 2.2, approved leave of absence. We have none. Item 2.3, application for a leave of absence. We have 2 requests from Councillor Diana Shand and Councillor Alexis Davey, both requesting leave for the ordinary council meeting on the 13th of December 2023. Item 3, there's a couple of announcements that I'd just like to mention. This afternoon, the councillors will be doing a workshop, and one of the topics that we'll be exploring is the recommissioning of the Picton and Greenbushes Railway, and looking at how that may impact on us should that go ahead. Council has invited the group conducting the feasibility study to conduct 2 further sessions, one which was held last night in Kirrip and the second to be held here in the council chambers on Wednesday the 22nd from 2:30 to 4 p.m. That will be before the council meeting. I encourage everyone to attend the session next week and remain informed. because your ideas, suggestions and concerns are valuable to planning our way forward. So please get in touch with me or one of your councillors and let us know your thoughts. Also, I'll just mention at the end of the meeting today that we have a couple of confidential items that we will be closing the meeting for. The first is just to discuss a bitumen products contract, and the second relates to the Citizenship Awards for Australia Day. So we'll close this while councillors are briefed, but no decision will be made, so there will be no outcome to be given when we come back from the close. And this means that when we resume, it will be simply to close the meeting. So item 4, declarations of interest. Division 6, Subdivision 1 of the Local Government Act 1995 excludes councillors from any matter where they have declared an interest. So councillors, should you make a declaration of interest, you'll be asked to leave the room when we question that item today, and again when we debate the item and when we debate and vote the item at the next week's meeting. Do you wish to declare a financial, impartiality or proximity interest in any of the items that we're discussing today? There are no declarations of interest. Item 5, public question time. Item 5.1, there are no responses to the previous public questions taken on notice. Item 5.2, public question time, which applies to the ordinary council meeting next week. And similarly, item 6.1, petitions, 6.2, presentations and 6.3, deputations, all apply to the ordinary council meeting next week. Which brings us to item 7, confirmation of minutes. Item 7.1, ordinary meeting of council through the Commissioner on the 19th of October 2023. And councillors, are there any questions or changes required to the minutes of the ordinary meeting of council held 19th of October 2023? Councillor Glover? We're just looking for Councillor Glover's microphone here.
All right, I'll move over to that one. Someone has unplugged me. Thank you for that, Mr. Marshall.
This is a little camera, isn't it?
I'm just wondering, my question is around, and I actually can't be sure now whether it was the ordinary council meeting or the special meeting. Sorry, and I'm sorry that I don't know. I think it was in the 7.1, the ordinary meeting. On there was a confidential or 2 confidential items. There's no record of that being delivered to us as councillors. I did send through an email to say that I hadn't received the recommendation or any of the information about those items. It was 12.1.1. I guess my question is, can we please receive a copy of that?
Is that a problem?
No, I just don't know. Can you just explain what the item was?
Oh, touchscreen, yeah. The item was the appointment of the temporary CEO. There was no information at all provided to us in the minutes about that.
Oh, I think, because it's a confidential item, that won't be in the public room, we can make that available to elected members. Sorry, that information can be made available, but we'll just make a time for you to come and inspect the documents.
That would be good, because it's hard to kind of confirm the meeting minutes without having all the information, that's all.
Oh, well, the minutes you're confirming is just the resolutions in the minutes, not the supporting documentation. Yeah.
It
the
just says that
resolution is
it was
adopts the
carried.
minutes and not all the supporting documentation. You're not adopting that, you're just adopting the minute.
Okay, but we will get that information because that would be
It
very
can be made
helpful. Thank
available,
you.
yes.
I also have another question around the minutes as well, if I may. It was around public question time. There was a question asked by Mr. Kev Johns, and that was in regard to the CCTV signs as well around town. He was requesting or making a suggestion that those signs be provided in the town as well, so that people could actually be noted that there is CCTV videoing happening. There was no real answer to that question in the minutes.
So are you saying that there was a question to be answered in public from public question time?
The question there, and it was from item 5.2, was that he would like to see more signage at the entrance of the Donnybrook Curate bailing up to say that the town is under CCTV surveillance, and suggested more CCTV coverage within the town site. There was just no, and I understand that his question was looking more like a statement, however, but I'm guessing that he's actually just asking if that could be possible.
Can we prepare an answer for that?
Well, we can provide the information, but if it was a statement, then it won't be incorporated in the minutes, but we can provide an update to that gentleman of what the position is.
That would be good because it's under public question time, but it's just been recorded and it looks more like a statement, but I'm guessing the beginning of it was probably about, can we please have more signs?
Okay. All right. Are there any other questions? Okay. Moving on to 7.2, the special meeting of Council, the 26th of October 2023. Councillors, are there any questions relating to that meeting? There are no questions.
Sorry, Vivian, can I ask a question? It was actually on the prior item. How, if we weren't present at the meeting, are we meant to be confirming it as a true and accurate record? The one on the 19th
On
of
the
October?
19th of October?
Or is it only people who are present at the meeting who are expected to do that?
Only people who are present at the meeting can
Okay.
confirm that they are a true and correct record.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What I might suggest, we'll include in the agenda that the meeting was, so no person who's currently an elected member was a voting member of that. Were there any people who were actually attended at the meeting?
I was here, I think. Yeah, I was here.
Can it be rewritten as noted rather than confirmed as a true and accurate record?
And what I'll do is I'll put some words in that reflect the exact position, because the legislation requires you to adopt the minutes. Well, you can't if you weren't there. What you can do is that we can highlight the fact that some people who are now on the council were in attendance and minutes were noted. Yeah, thank you.
Thanks.
Thanks, Councillor Davey. Okay, that brings us to item 9, reports of officers. Item 9.1 is from the Director of Operations and relates to the disposal of idle assets from the Apple Fun Park. Director of Operations, Ross Marshall, would you like to brief councillors on the key points from your report?
Thank you, President McCarthy. In particular, would you like me to read the summary, or would you like a general?
Or you can just pull out the key points, Ross, or would you rather just take questions?
Happy to take questions or read out parts of my report that I've already put together.
Councillor Patrick?
Yeah, thanks. Look, my question around this is my understanding, and even following on from the minutes of the previous ordinary council meeting, Mr. Kev Johns had advised that the equipment had already been donated to him, and I'm aware of social media that he'd arranged for it to be collected and restored and distributed accordingly. So I'm trying to understand why we're looking at an item where we're going to be proposing a tender process if that has allegedly already occurred, and I'm just wanted some clarification around that if I can.
Yeah, certainly. Thank you, Councillor Patrick. Under the Local Government Act, which I actually did take down to Mr Johns and show him, there's a process for disposal. And I've tried to help Mr Johns understand what that is so that he doesn't get upset with us and get frustrated with the process. And obviously Mr Johns is here today, so so we can't just sort of give things away. It's obviously we can try and give you information, give you our ideas on what we think we should do with assets. And part of the process is following the disposal process. So hence my report today talks about the first steps of that process.
Thanks for that. So if I may, just to clarify, so at this stage, the equipment still is owned by the Shire, is still in the Shire's possession, and the tender process is what's required to dispose of it.
Yeah, your understanding is correct.
Thanks.
Councillor Mitchell?
You're going to say the same thing, aren't you? Moving on from there, and if I cast my mind back 2+ years, I actually thought there was an agenda item where everything was returned to the ownership of Mr Fry. There was some issues at the time, and I thought I thought it was and I didn't think till now to look back on the minutes, but I actually thought there was a motion before council at that stage that said it was going back to Mr Fry.
Is that a question?
Was it? Was there an agenda item?
I can probably jump in there. Thank you. I'm not aware if there was a motion that actually spoke that way. However, I have actually gone and consulted Mr Fry, and that's obviously part of my report, just to, one, out of respect and courtesy. But I think if you do feel, Councillor Mitchell, there was a resolution, we'll go and have a look for it.
Thank you.
Councillor Lindeman?
Through the President McCarthy, just a question to Mr Marshall, please. My question is, previously we have donations and we have to the Shire, and we have accepted those, and as time has gone on realised that perhaps they then come back with caveats, if you like, on those donations. Have we done something to change accepting of donations so that these things become more clearer? We were referring back to Anne Mitchell, the Councillor Mitchell, we had discussed that, and they were going to change those things so that if something's donated, it becomes Shire property with no more conversation in regards to its disposal or what happens to it over a period of time.
Thank you, Councillor Lindeman. I'm not really sure if I can respond to that one because it's probably relating to council policy, but certainly my understanding is the item in particular, the equipment, is council property. So does that help?
We can take a note of that and look at that at a point in time. Yeah.
Thanks for the question. We'll modify the report. So there's something in there about what the donations policy is. Just expand a bit about the legislation and what we can and can't do so that the gentleman in question is aware of it and everyone else is aware of what the situation is. Thank you.
Thank you.
Councillor Davey?
Just a really minor point. Item 1, the executive recommendation, is that meant to read where is as is basis?
Yes.
Really minor, but will be relevant to moving it at the meeting.
Thanks to Councillor Davey. Any further questions? Moving on to 9.2.2, monthly financial report. Sorry, no, 9.2, I beg your pardon, Director of Corporate and Community. 9.2.1, accounts for payment, October 2023. Do councillors have any questions relating to this item? Councillor Mitchell?
Yeah, I do, if I may. I recall the Commissioner mentioned to us that there was zero expenses taken from the reallocation, and stop me if this should be confidential, zero expenses from the reallocation of people from Minnup during the rebuild. However, I see on the accounts for payment that IGA, there's weekly costs towards meals. I understand they're in the mobile, in the motel, and you know, it's supplementing their costs because they can't buy big, etc. But my question is, where are those costs coming from?
You're okay to respond?
Through you, Madam Chair. Thank you, Councillor Mitchell, for the question. Yeah, happy to confirm that the payment of those for those goods is all covered through the grant, as well as the actual reserve for the cottages, the joint venture agreement. So it's not costing ratepayers anything.
No, sorry. Sorry, that wasn't my question. My question was, we'd been informed that there had been zero drawdown on the reallocation expenses for that at our briefing session on that Monday, whereas I'm assuming these costs, and I've got no problem with the cost, but what I'm wondering, you know, now of course we've got the issue that the going back into the units has been delayed. That's where I'm wondering, is there enough funds to cover, you know, if those meals have been drawn down from that particular account? Thank you.
Yeah, thanks for that clarification, Councillor Mitchell. So there are two sources of funding for both the accommodation, the storage of, you know, the residences' effects, and for meals. So one source is through the grant funding itself, the SHRP grant funding, $2.866 million. A component of that $2.866 million, which was allowed for the provision of what we're talking about as $170,000, that hadn't been touched at all, okay? There's another provision that's being utilised as well, but that's actually coming out of the reserve funds, which are reserve funds jointly held by the Shire and the Department of Communities, because they're actually under a joint venture agreement. So what you were told on Monday, I would suggest, would have been the actual 170 that related to the SHRP grant funding itself. Okay, so none of that funding has actually been expended, and essentially there is the opportunity to move that allocation back into actually getting things on ground as opposed to using it for those purposes.
Oh, sorry, one more question if I may. Units 1 to 4, they're not in a joint venture, are they? How's the refurbishment of them being dealt with?
That is correct, Councillor Mitchell. They're not under the JV arrangement. They are outright owned by the Shire, and they are being funded as such in the same manner that the JV units are as well. So the SHRP money is going towards the renewal of those 4 units as well.
So that won't change the 100% ownership by the Shire? Thank you.
No.
Thank you, Councillor Mitchell. Councillor Davey?
On items 9.2.1 and 9.2.2, there's a lot of detail in the attachments, and I was wondering whether it was practical or possible to, instead of Shire staff endeavouring to have that information to us 72 hours prior to an agenda briefing, that the information is provided 1 week prior. It's a question. I'm happy for you to come back to me later, but there's a lot of detail there for 72 hours notice.
I agree. Can we, the run through that we've organised, can we explain that?
Well, through you, Madam Chair, if I may. Through you, Madam Chair, if I may, it's all about timing. And, you know, if we look at the cut-off date for the December meeting, effectively by the 20th of November, we have to have the reports ready. So In terms of the monthly financial statements, we need the month to physically end, and we need everything to be transacted. Then we need to do bank reconciliations, etc. So dependent on the timing of the actual meeting itself or the agenda briefing, it may or may not be humanly possible as such. But what I would say is that between the agenda briefing, this is not the last opportunity for councillors to be asking questions. Okay? So if at the council meeting next Wednesday you have a question, or if Monday you have a question, quite frankly, I'm more than happy for councillors to email me or email councillor requests, okay, with a question regarding either the payments or the monthly financial statements. And, you know, we can make both the question and the answers to those questions, make sure they get back to all councillors so everybody's getting the same information. And if I may indulge, Madam President, I must say I can't remember if I suggested this to our CEO. I believe it was Gary just today, but in the past I have run some sessions with councillors in terms of actually understanding and I guess demystifying the monthly financial statements, so that when you look at them you actually understand, okay, so that piece of the puzzle feeds into that statement, you know, and actually point out to you all some very pertinent things that you should look at to make sure that the number on page 1 there agrees with the number on page 5 there, because if it doesn't, there's a problem, Houston. So certainly happy to do that through the forum of a workshop. As I said, last time I did it, it was well received by councillors. So yeah.
So we'll look at organising that.
Yeah.
The workshop sounds good. I do note that the December meeting's earlier, but in the 2024 schedule it's not. So if we could, if you could just come back to us on whether the timing is practical for the standard meeting agenda for 2024, that'd be great.
Yep. Certainly
Thanks,
can do that.
Councillor Davey.
So-
Welcoming Councillor Shand, who's entered the room. Thank you. Any further questions? Councillor Glover? Oh, sorry. Find a microphone.
I'm just curious about, this is also about the Langley Villas and their SHERP funding too, because invoice EFT 27201, it's around the grounds gardening and maintenance as well, whilst I understand some of it is with the Preston Village and others are with the Langley Villas. I'm just curious because sometimes on the statement it will say that it's coming out of the SHERP funding and then other times it's not. So can you just clarify why that would be the case?
Can I just confirm that this is relating to the payments or the report, or the financial report?
It's the payments still, yeah.
Yeah, the only time that there will be, sorry, through you, Madam Chair, and thank you for your question, Councillor Glover. The only time that funding won't come out of the SHERP is if it is actually related to the residents and their accommodation, meals, or the hire of the containers where we store their equipment. Other than that, everything will be coming out of SHERP. Jono's handyman and cabinetry services, that work will have nothing to do with the actual capital renewal project whatsoever. Yeah.
Thank you, Councillor Glover. Any more questions?
I have one, but I can't remember if it's from 9.2.1 or 9.2.2. It's page 52 of the attachments. So there's a fire prevention underspend of 58,000, and I was just wondering if that has changed in the intervening period. Is it the next report, is it? Okay.
Is that a variance?
Oh,
A variance?
yep.
Through.
Okay, we're on to 9.2.2, the monthly financial report.
Yeah.
for September 2023.
Through you, Madam Chair, and thank you for the question, Councillor Davey. That is fire mitigation works. It's fire mitigation works. So the council receives funding. We apply for funding through DFIS to undertake fire mitigation works. We apply for it, we budget throughout the year to undertake those works, and dependent upon whether we actually can at the time or can't. Jess, if I might refer to you, we had a recent down in the racecourse reserve where we had planned to do a section, but that has actually been postponed. Correct me if I'm wrong, Jess? Yep, thank you. And that's what it is. So we'd be looking at it as an example to actually be able to carry those funds forward in the new year.
So they won't be spent this fire season, it'll be next fire season? Fire prevention works.
What have we spent?
So are you saying that the 50, just a second?
Pretty sure the figure was 58,000.
Yeah, the 58,000 for fire prevention works will not be spent until next season.
Quite possibly, yes.
Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Davey. Are there any further questions? Councillor Glover?
Councillor Patrick. I'm just curious about, on the same page, the SHRP grant, it says 43,000 over as well. So is that just over from an allocation for the month? Is that what that equates to? That's on the page, it's page 52 of the attachments, but it's on page 2 of the material variance report.
Yes, through you, Madam Chair. Thank you, Councillor Glover. Yes, it just means that we've actually received $43,000 more than what we thought we would have received at this point in time.
Thank you to Councillor Glover. Any more questions? Thank you.
Sorry, I have one more question.
Councillor
President
Davey.
McCarthy. I have many questions. So the capital spend year to date seems to be quite behind schedule. If you could enlighten us a little bit more on that, that'd be great. Thanks.
Through you, Madam Chair, and thank you for your question, Councillor Davey. The main thrust of that is the VC Mitchell Park project. At the beginning of the year, we actually just budgeted that over a 12-month period. It's only just recently started its construction phase, so that's the bulk of the variation there. We also have some capital works in terms of road infrastructure, whereby coming into these more summery months, we'll actually see that ramp up. So it really is just a case of actual timing itself.
So we've phased the budget across 12 months evenly, but our
Yeah.
spend is not.
Pretty much. Now, what I'll be doing, and we try and do this as soon as we possibly can, is we actually go through the budget and we'll actually basically program it as to when it should happen. And we've certainly done that with certain components. For example, rates, as soon as you raise them, they're on your books, regardless of whether you receive the funding. And if you spread it over 12 months, it looks like we've got this massive windfall, of course, which isn't the case. And that's where this material variance reporting is important, but it's also equally as important to try and get our year-to-date budgeting as accurate as we possibly can.
Yes.
Yeah.
It's helpful, and it's helpful with question time because
Yeah.
we can relate the budget to the activity that we see happening
Yeah.
where it's possible.
Yeah.
Could I please ask another question?
Councillor Davey, go.
Page 57, the paragraphs that are presented, when you talk about ease of interpretation, those are a little bit hard to use given there's 3 green and 3 blue segments. So if you could just perhaps put the labels adjacent or something to make it easier for people to understand what that breakdown is, that would be
I'm
excellent.
sure that's possible.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Absolutely.
Are there any further questions?
I have one more.
What was that? Councillor Lindemann? No? Okay. All right.
On page 88, the investments.
Councillor Davey?
What are these?
Page 80.
Through you, Madam Chair, and thank you again, Councillor Davies. The actual investments themselves are essentially cash holdings that we have. The investments, we invest in term deposits. Okay, so we don't go any risky product at all. What you have on that page 38 or 88 of the actual attachments, you've got $6.5 million worth of cash investments. The interest rates on those vary between deposits between 4.13% and 5%. Certainly with the latest RBA increase, any investments that we undertake since the 30th of September, we're either getting 4.9% or above in terms of return on investment. Those funds are budgeted to be received as income in the budget, and indeed reduce the overall rate burden, if you will, on ratepayers. So we budget for that income to be utilised and applied, to the expenses in the budget throughout the year. Just for your info, as at the end of October, so 6.5 at the end of September in cash investments, and we actually had a total amount of $8.3 million in cash held, and as at the end of October, we had $5 million in cash investments, and we had a total amount of cash of $8.7 million.
So just a point of clarity, where you have type being term deposit versus type being investments, they're all term deposits?
Yes, they are.
Okay, thanks.
Any further questions? Okay, moving on. Item 9.3, there are 3 items under the Chief Executive Officer. The first is the 9.3.1, which is the agenda briefing and council meeting dates for 2024. I thank Lauren for the work that's gone into this, and throw it open to councillors to ask any questions. Councillor
Am I?
Patrick?
I'm just checking I'm on the right one. So the meeting dates, the executive recommendation talks about transferring the agenda briefings on Wednesday through to 5 p.m. I just wanted to clarify on the following page, the executive summary, it says council is requested to adopt the calendar as per below, but they revert back to 2 p.m. So I just wanted to check that that was essentially a typo and 5 p.m. is what we're recommending.
It was deliberately put there and you win the prize.
Thank you. Are there any further questions on our dates for next year?
Is there a reason why we've reverted back to December being a later meeting rather than an earlier meeting?
My understanding it was so that it's more accessible for people that are trying to get to the meetings after work or...
Sorry, in the month. The December meeting is later in 2024?
Oh yes, I think, correct me if I'm wrong, Chief Executive Officer, but I think there was a motion, that there was some confusion around a motion that was put earlier to move the meetings to 5 p.m. Lauren, would you like to clarify that?
Sorry, I'm not asking about time of day. I'm asking about the time of month in the date in December that the 2024 meeting is proposed to be held is later in the month than it is typically.
Oh,
So
the
it's
week,
early.
instead of being the week earlier.
Yeah.
Got you, sorry. Lauren, would you like to help us?
Right, so just based on the, just the general, that the OCMs are generally held on the fourth Wednesday of the month. So if it worked out that way, we had it held that way, but that's up to you guys, the council to determine whether they want to hold those meetings at that time. It also just gives, staff more time to get that information together ready for council. So, that would be a consideration for council to make when making a decision as to what, when they want to have those briefings and those council meeting sessions.
Does it conflict with holiday period?
No, there's no holiday conflictions with any of those dates.
Well, then I guess it's, if we can look at that this afternoon when we're workshopping, perhaps we can look at that, whether it's suitable to us or not. Thanks, Councillor Davey. Any further questions? Moving on to 9.3.2, the biennial review of Council Policy EMCP1, Council Member Induction, Training and Professional Development. Do councillors have any questions about the policy?
Sorry, I just want to back it up, if I may, through the chair. 9.3.1, the live stream statistics.
Yes.
I just wanted clarification on that, which is that viewer count. Is that the live stream and the recording watches? Because all it says is YouTube statistics for the viewer count. Is that the live stream plus the recording views, or is it just recorded views, or is it both?
I'll just clarify, we're back on 9.3.1.
Yeah, sorry, we should
And
just skip
you'll-
past that bit.
So the agenda briefing and council meeting dates.
I'll have to check that with our comms officer.
Okay, thank you.
Sorry.
Sorry, Madam Chair.
No problem. Thanks, Councillor Patrick. Okay, we're back on 9.3.2, the biennial review of the policy for induction, training and professional development. Do councillors have any questions for this policy? Yes, Councillor Patrick.
Sorry, just two quick ones on that. Just points to clarify, I guess. One, for the candidate inductions under section 4, it says 4.3 is every person nominating for council will be required to declare they have participated in. I was of the understanding there was a requirement to provide evidence that they've completed that induction when they can do their nomination as well. Was that correct? And if so, could we look at potentially putting in, because it just says declare they have done it. It doesn't state that
say
they have to
evidence.
provide the evidence. So that was one, I guess, point of clarity I wasn't sure of. And the next one is under 4.11 in the policy. It says council will consider the following when approving requests from council members. And I wasn't sure, in everything else it sort of refers to these, the requests go to the CEO for training, but then it talks about council will consider. And I just wanted that clarity as to who it is that actually makes the determination, or the policy clarified as to who makes the determination on the approvals for those professional development applications. Thanks.
So looking for consistency in that.
Yeah, or just clarification when the policy, I wasn't sure who that actually sat with. I guess is a question, is who
Thank
does
you.
it sit with? Is it the council or the CEO that determines whether or not a request is approved?
Thank you, Councillor Patrick. Can we change that wording to be consistent?
We can change that wording. I think that it might just be that that there is the possibility that the Chief Executive Officer can approve any PD that may be requested. However, that's up to council to decide whether they want that to happen or whether they prefer that it come to a meeting and have an item presented to have that that confirmed, or whether you do want to have it done via an authorisation to the Chief Executive Officer. But happy to make sure that the wording is consistently across the board.
Just on process, to the Chief Executive Officer, how can we have that altered for the ordinary council meeting?
Yeah, thank you, Madam President, and thanks for the question. It's just flagged in my mind. The statutory training you've got to do should be just delegated so that it can happen. The policy perhaps could identify what other training you as a council are happy to happen as a matter of course, and then those that ought to come to the council for some form of validation over and above. So I'll have a chat with the staff about how we might structure that. I'll declare a conflict of interest because I present training, as some of you know, but particularly the new elected folk, the more training you can do to broaden your knowledge and understanding, the better off it is for you. But again, that's obviously within limits, because there are some local governments I've been at that people spend all their time going off to training sessions, and you know, what value does it add in some instances? But we'll have another look at that so that we differentiate between statutory and discretionary, and whether some discretionary can just happen as a matter of course within a limit. So you set a limit per person, and because you've all got different skills and different requirements, so we could handle it that way. Thank you.
Excellent. Thank you. Councillor Davey?
So would one of those discretionary units, for example, be the additional modules on CEO recruitment and CEO performance review? Are they ones that can be taken outside the diploma? And
If I might,
you may.
Madam President, later today I'm going to actually talk to you a bit about what that process is for recruitment, and it would be really good if whoever's on that recruitment committee, and if it's everyone, well then everyone, needs to go through some of that process, because it's going to be the biggest decision you make, both in terms of impact and finance. So, and it's complicated, and it's got more complicated in the last 2 years. So even those that might have done it before, there are a number of changes that have been made. Thank you.
Thank you for those insights. Are there any other questions on this policy? Moving down into 9.3.3, Shire Committees and Councillor Group Membership. Now today, councillors are looking to understand the purpose of each committee and how they represent the interests of our Shire, both within the Shire and in the region as a whole. Chief Executive Officer Gary Hunt and Lauren Clifford have organised staff and councillors who have worked in these committees previously to provide us with an overview. Is that correct?
Yeah.
And then I will just hand it over to you to lead that progression of people, and I believe we've got a mix of councillors and council staff. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam President. Councillors, I'm largely going to defer to Lauren in this case, in her role as Manager of Corporate Services, and who's had the responsibility for putting a lot of this together. The intent today is to outline what the role of the committee is, as it's defined in these papers, and answer any questions, and then the workshop later on will go into a little more detail. While we can explain the role, we haven't been an elected member on, there's a lot of committees, but there are a lot of representative roles with external groups, and what I'd be encouraging the council to do is where you can match up a skill base and an interest with some of those external committees. To that end, there's been some conversations, I understand, with a couple of councillors who've been on the council previously, so that there's an opportunity for them to outline to you what the involvement is, because a clear understanding of what the group does is imperative, because if you go along thinking you're going to do one thing and it's something totally different, it gets a bit frustrating, both time-wise and for someone else that might have wanted to be involved. So I'm going to pass over to the Manager of Corporate Services, get my head around these names, otherwise known as Lauren, to take us through the individual committees. So there's committees of council, and then there's representative groups, and there's a difference to what they do, and she'll outline that. Thanks.
Thank you very much, Gary. If I could start with, we've got our Community Emergency Services Manager, Jessie Cooper, in the room. And Jess, if you wouldn't mind providing a bit of an overview on the Bushfire Advisory Committee, as well as the Local Emergency Management Committee, if you want to come up and grab a mic.
Hello, as Lauren mentioned, I'm Jess Cooper, the Shire's Community Emergency Services Manager. I'm responsible for facilitating two committees that are advisory committees of council, one of which is the Local Emergency Management Committee, or LEMC. That's a committee that is formed under the provisions of the Emergency Management Act 2005. Every local government must have one. They're responsible for ensuring that emergency plans and arrangements are in place relevant to the local government area. For example, some of our hazards that we've identified for the Shire of Donnybrook bailing up might be vastly different from somewhere like East Kimberley. So it just provides that local context. There's representation on that committee from government agencies or supporting agencies, anywhere from WA Police, Department of Primary Industries and DPIRD, Tuia Lodge, Bailing Up Progress Association, just to provide that local context. Do we want to do one committee at a time? Yeah. Yep. So I'm happy for any questions on that. Normally the elected member, or the elected member is the chairperson of that committee as well.
Any questions?
Yep, so that committee also is activated, or is there a separate one when there is an emergency, when there's bushfire? That one then becomes activated and it has,
Yes.
forestry, whatever
Yeah.
they used to be. Yeah, and they take over, the Shire looks after the local fires, and then when they escalate to a greater level, they're taken over. But the LEMAC is still involved in
Yeah.
those throughout the fires. Yep, so that's the case. And who are the recovery officers currently?
Yeah, at the moment, our recovery coordinator is Susie Delaporte, who is the community manager of community engagement. Thank you. And so, yes, you're correct. The membership of the Local Emergency Management Committee predominantly forms the incident support group. So when an incident is underway, they provide advice and perform tasks based on what the incident requires.
Any further questions for Jess? Thank you, Jess.
And Bushfire Advisory? Yeah. So then the second committee that I look after is the Bushfire Advisory Committee. That's an optional committee that is formed under the Bushfires Act. We have representation from each of the 12 bushfire brigades that Shire of Donnybrook Bailing Up manage. And they're your experts in fire. They provide advice on anything to do with management of bushfire within the Shire of Donnybrook Bailing Up, everything from prevention to preparedness, the wording in the fire break order. That's predominantly what they do. They meet twice a year. And there's also non-voting membership from other agencies such as DBCA, so Department of Parks and Wildlife, Department of Fire and Emergency Services are also members of that.
Does anyone have any questions on the Bushfire Advisory Committee? Thank you, Jess. Well done.
Thank you. Just wondering if Damien, if you would be able to provide some advice around the regional road group and what's generally the purpose of those meetings, if you're able to come up and then if anyone has any questions for you.
Afternoon all. I'm Damien Morgan, Manager Works and Services. So as part of being part of the South West Road Group, we have the South West Regional Road Group, where we meet 3 times a year. Elected members come along to discuss and consider matters relating to funding for regionally significant roads. These are quite comprehensive documents and all that on there that can be provided, but it's an important group for our funding for our roads. It also considers commodity route funding, which we do get some generally each year, along with black spot funding as well. So it's fairly, it's a well-received group. They all work together. They all consider each other's needs and requirements for funding for improvement of roads. And it's a good group to be involved in because it's considering quite a large component of road funding for the shires in the southwest going from that there. So,
Do councillors have any questions of Damien? Councillor Patrick?
Okay, hi Damien.
Yeah.
Where does that particular committee generally meet?
so generally we meet at the Shire of Dartmouth, near Eaton Fair. We have 2 weeks prior to that, we have a committee meeting, as a technical group meeting, which I attend. The elected members aren't required to go to that. There is always, there is also quite a lot of times where elected members need to give their, be requested to advise if they support a motion, because many councillors put up, they might have a road project which is going over funding or underfunding, they want to seek further funds or give money back into the pool for reuse. So generally quite a bit of correspondence might just be emailed out through myself and Ross, just requesting if you support. I'll give my opinion if it's any contentious matters there, if it should be supported, and just seeking feedback for that to be passed back to the group as the council rep.
Councillor Mitchell?
Nice to see you again, Mr.
Yeah.
Morgan. How often does the regional road group, is it monthly or quarterly?
Nice to see you again too, Anne. It's gone to 3 meetings a year now, so generally every 4 months the meeting is, but yeah.
And one more question, if I may. Is it still a case, and bearing in mind I will say that I have been on this committee before, that it was imperative to have projects ready to go in case someone else couldn't complete them, so that you put up your hands? Is it still, Donnybrook Bailey up to put up their hand? Is it still function that way?
Yeah, it's still encouraged that way for people to have projects ready to put your hand up for money. Obviously, typically you need your 1/3 matching money and being in a position to get it. Yeah.
Any further questions for Damien? Thank you, Damien.
No doubt. Cheers.
Lauren?
I was going to invite President McCarthy to see if she wanted to speak in regards to the Audit and Risk Management Committee, as she was an external member on that committee. Unless you want Kim to speak,
I
which I'm
was
not quite
going
sure
to
where
leave it to
he
Kim,
is.
but I'm not sure that he's here at the moment. The Audit and Risk Management Committee meet as required. It's probably needs to meet more often than as required. I'd like to see it definitely meeting at a minimum of quarterly. The meetings are held here, and we go through mainly audit requirements at the moment, but the committee can also help with policy, risk management, and in other areas. So there's scope for that committee to do more than it is now. CEO, would you like to add to that? Look, it's comprised of three elected members and 2 external independent members.
Thank you, Madam President. I would encourage the committee to at least meet 3 times a year. You need to meet, and it'll need to meet as soon as the director's back. The financials have been audited. You'll need to meet to provide advice to the council for the formal adoption of the audit. I'd also encourage it to meet on at least 2 other occasions. I think it can add value to the council. You've got some external people looking on, and they might even become a councillor after they've been on it for a while.
Career pathway. Would you like to add anything? Kim, you weren't in the room, and I did mention that we could meet quarterly, probably, ideally, and that there was further scope for risk management and policy review.
Yeah, thank you, Madam Chair. In the past, the committee has had scheduled meetings, and that was for a year. There's nothing actually in the terms of reference that actually states that the committee shall do that. And sometimes that can be problematic in terms of timelines, in terms of particularly the annual financial statements and when we receive them. So, for example, if we receive them in December, but there's a scheduled meeting in November, it's a bit of a waste of people's time. But definitely, we've got the compliance audit return, which is in March. So there are definitely meetings that we can schedule in so that council members and committee members know, you know, particularly when those types of meetings occur. Just for your information, as far as the annual audit of the 22-23 financial year goes, we're expecting the OAG, the Office of the Auditor General, to release their final opinion early December. That will not allow enough time for us to get an item to the December council meeting. There are set timeframes in which the audit committee must basically review the auditor's report, independent auditor's report, through a formal committee meeting, and through that process, should it find appropriate, it is to report to the council its findings and actions that it sees required. So in the past, they've certainly reviewed it, but there have been no actions required. So it's simply been noted that it's been reviewed with no actions required. That then leads on to when it goes to council. And once it's presented to council, there's a time frame for the production and adoption of the annual report for council. So a lot of things fall together. Certainly staff have been working on the annual report in contemplation of receiving the annual financial statements and the independent auditor's report. So I would expect that we're going to need a audit and risk committee meeting sometime in December, and potentially a special council meeting sometime in December as well.
Thank you,
Okay.
Mr Dolzadeli. Are there any questions about the Audit and Risk Committee? Yes, Councillor Patrick.
Just to clarify, when we're talking audit and risk, and based on what I can read even through the outline of the committee, we're purely talking financial audit and financial risk, as against strategic, quality management, anything else?
No, we're not just talking financial. No, certainly the compliance audit return, it's a return that the department, come up with each financial year. Each council is to complete it by the 31st of March, or it's to be lodged by the 31st of March each year with the Department of Local Government. The questions within that return certainly do not just lie in the area of finance. It'll go into things like primary returns, annual returns, disposal of property, all sorts of matters local government where compliance with law is required. The other things that the committee can deal with is certainly risk registers, risk assessment. So no, it's certainly not pure financial.
Project risk? Sorry, would it cover project risk management, or the way we, so not specifically the project, but the way we manage project risk, or any other?
Well, I would suggest that with a risk matrix for the organisation, that it would be appropriate for the audit committee to actually play a part in development of that. And if certainly they would, I would suggest it would be an intelligent thing to do for the committee to review it and make recommendations on it if they see fit.
Thank you. Any further questions around the Audit and Risk Committee? Thank you. Back to you.
Okay, I was just
Lauren?
going to, if I could ask him if he could, while he's got his mic on, if he could speak about the Southwest Country Zone, give a bit of a briefing on the Southwest Country Zone.
Thank you, Lauren. We would be talking about the Southwest Country Zone of Walga. So Walga are the peak representative body for local government throughout Western Australia. And we have the I'm looking for the words, Gary, the peak body of the
Advocacy and
thank you. But the zones, there's a range of zones. In rural, I believe there are 12 zones, rural zones throughout Western Australia. We are in the southwest zone. Effectively, the members of the member councils of the Southwest Zone come together. It certainly is an advocacy type role. So as an example, we've heard rail mentioned today. It's a way of, I guess, banding together with like-minded councils in our zone and trying to lobby state government and for that matter others in terms of good outcomes for the region.
Excellent, thank you. Are there any questions around the Southwest Country Zone? Thank you. Lauren?
Thank you. And I had previously corresponded with Councillor Glover, who said that she wouldn't mind speaking to a couple of the other committees that she has been on, or reference groups that she has been on. Councillor Glover, are you still happy to speak about those committees or reference groups? If you want to start with the development assessment panels.
Sure. So I was on the development assessment panel, and that requires a one-day training. You need to attend the training to be part of that panel. And then what happens from there is there any developments within the state that they are looking for a broader consultation on, they will request you to participate in that. I did the training, and then I wasn't asked to participate in any of those discussions any further on. So it is really interesting. It's about, because they do look for broader consultation when they have a project that's coming up that they're not quite sure about. So that's when they'll look for a broader advice on that. But yeah, I did it. The training was good, but I wasn't asked to do anything further than that. So, but anyone could. Oh, and yes, you do. You get paid for doing that as well. So you'll be required to, can't remember exactly what it was, but I had to put in my work and my employment, maybe something about the wages that I lost for that day. And then I got reimbursed for that. And any time that you are asked to contribute to that assessment panel, you will also be reimbursed for your time in that as well.
Thank you, Lisa. Are there any questions for Lisa around the development panel? Thank you, Lisa.
Lisa, are you comfortable in speaking about the Donnybrook School Community Resource Library Management Committee?
Yes, I was also on that committee as well, and nothing happened at all on that committee. I was hoping to attend things around that, but it just seemed that, yeah, we have a requirement to be on that committee, but they don't seem to be meeting at the moment. That space could change, but yeah.
Thank you, Lisa. Any questions regarding the library committee that we don't really know a lot about? Thank you.
Lisa, the Warren Blackwood Alliance of Councils.
I was a proxy for that, but I didn't attend that that meeting. But I don't know. Do you want me to give you a broad rundown of what that actually means? So the Warren Blackwood Alliance of Councils is the 5 councils that we're alongside with. So there's Boyup Brook, Nannup, Bridgetown Greenbushes, Manjimup and ourselves, and so we all form an alliance together, and that alliance it's similar to the country zones, but it's a smaller area, and they all meet together to help form a group of direction of where they might go. It's a great group to come through as a collective to let state government or even perhaps federal government know what it is that's happening within our area as well. So rather than have every individual council saying, oh, hey, what about us? It's actually a group of an alliance that come together and they all agree on a specific area. They might look for funding, they might look for policy change, they might look at different directions in that way. So, and I'm not sure exactly, they might meet monthly or bi-monthly, every 2 months, yeah. And then it changes location all the time. So every council has a turn of hosting that particular group.
Thank you, Lisa. Does anyone have any questions of Lisa for that group? I do, Lisa. Is there any connection between the Warren Blackwood Alliance and the Southwest Country Zone?
Not really, but they're generally there's generally the same people because you've got the Shire presidents of all those areas. But this country zone is. I actually did attend the last meeting of that too. That was hosted in Boyart Brook, and that was in that. The country zone, it was looking at the changes that were all happening within Walga as well and coming together as a collective of the Southwest Zone to vote on particular changes that Walga were going through in regard to their governance.
So quite a different agenda in each group?
Different agenda, yes. So the alliance is specifically within those 5 councils.
Okay,
And the Southwest is, it's broader, it's way broader, yeah.
Thank you. Any further questions? Lauren?
And thank you, Councillor Glover. The Warren Blackwood Climate Change Impact Reference Group, and this is the last one.
You will be sick of me. Okay, so sitting underneath the Warren Blackwood Alliance sits the Climate Change Group as well. So the Climate Change Group will report back to the Warren Blackwood Alliance Group. And when I was part of the Climate Change Group, it was an amazing group. We'd meet generally down in Bridgetown, and it was bi-monthly during the day on a Friday. We were headed by a consultant named Mark Beatty. He was incredibly wise with how, and his portfolios previously were very much in line with that. He's come down to live down in the southwest as a tree change, so he's very passionate about the idea, but very logical, as in that he had previously worked for Walga. Yeah. So he's very logical with what's possible and what's not. So in the meetings that I attended, we created a policy in line with also Walga's expectations around climate change and the impact of climate change. And then we looked at a plan around how we could all contribute towards or find ways to mitigate climate change as well. And then we obviously graded it into high, medium, low, timeframes, etc. And so it's a really great group. And we bring that back to the plan and the policy all went back through the Warren Blackwood Alliance Group, and they okayed it, or they passed it through there, and then it came back through to council to get presented to council as well. So we don't make any decisions that affect everyone until it goes back up through the Warren Blackwood Alliance Group, and then it comes back to council as well. But very worthy group.
Does anyone have any questions of Lisa on the Alliance Reference Group?
It's not actually on the last one, it's on all of them. Are there requirements to report back to the council each time you attend a meeting? And if so, what style of report is required?
Sorry, was that just for this group, for all? Do you want to park that one until we get to the end of this one and then we're clean? Because I have a question on that one. Is the action plan coming out of the Impact Reference Group or the Alliance of Councils? The Warren Blackwood Action Plan. I think we passed a motion to adopt that in the Donnybrook Balingup Shire in perhaps October or November 22.
So in the Climate Change Group create the plan, and then it goes back up to the Warren Blackwood Alliance Group to pass and accept that, because the Climate Change Group is a subcommittee of the Warren Blackwood Alliance Group. And yes, it came to council, I think it was in October last year. However, the document, I think the wording around that was those documents were received, not accepted. I do believe that further down the track with Commissioner McGowan, I believe I was sitting in a meeting and there was further acceptance of those documents that came back through earlier this year, but I wasn't actually a councillor at that time, but I was sitting in the gallery. I have a feeling it was perhaps around March or April where those documents finally got accepted.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you for that. And then going back to your question, Councillor Shand, in general, I think you were asking, do we report back to council with our committee, after our committee meetings? Lauren, or CEO?
Thank you, Madam President. Normal protocol would be, if you take Walga, there will be minutes that come out, and what I'm used to is those minutes would be circulated and listed as an item in the agenda saying, here are the minutes. Usually there's not a lot of commentary on them. In terms of other groups, like some of these others, where an officer attends and where there are notes from those meetings, I would expect those notes to be circulated to all elected members, so you're across it. If and when there is an action that requires a formal council decision, we would lift that out of that circulated document and bring it as a separate report to the council. So the reporting structure for main committees is very formalised and in line with the provisions of the Local Government Act. The subsidiary committees, like the child, the name of the group, if there was no officer going, then I would expect that representative might send us a note saying, attended the meeting, but there were no issues that required decision by the council or input from the council. But where there's an officer, there would be a formal report in some form of reporting mechanism to bring information to the council.
Yeah, I would generally, if I was attending one of those meetings, I would say at the beginning of at the meeting, when the Shire President would generally say what she had been doing in the last month, I would generally raise that there and say I attended the climate change meeting or whatever at that time. And then, yes, then if there were minutes, then they would also be attached to the meeting as well.
Thank you, Councillor Glover. Are there any more questions about the committees? Right. So moving on to item 10, elected member motions of which previous notice has been given, and we have none. Item 11, new business of an urgent nature introduced by decision of the meeting. We're not concerned with that today, that will be next week. And that brings us to the point, I think, where we will now close the meeting to the public. Councillors will be briefed on the two items I mentioned earlier, the bitumen products contract, which is considered confidential under section 5.23C of the Local Government Act. And the second item relates to the 2024 Community Citizens of the Year Awards, and this report is confidential under section 5.23B and D of the Local Government Act 1995. I'll ask the gallery to step outside, and after councillors have been briefed, we will call you back to close the meeting. terms for this, that's my Kim, and this is CEO, oh no, not CEO Kim
No,
anymore,
don't say
Director
that.
Kim, yes.
Yeah, that's it.
Right, we're back on live stream. Okay, moving forward to item 13, which is our meeting closure. Thank you to our executive team for their reports and briefings. Thank you, councillors, for your time and attention. And thank you to everyone who attended in the public gallery and watched the live stream. Your interest, time and support is much appreciated. Our ordinary council meeting will be held on the 22nd of November 2023, commencing at 5 p.m. in these council chambers. And we will declare the meeting closed at 3:45. Thank you.